All right, welcome to Patriot Pravda podcast. This is episode 10. We've made it to 10.
We've got a special episode for y'all today. I have two special guests, very close people to me in my life. I've known them for 25 years. My good friend Corey Andrew and Jake Henderson.
All right, yeah, and they came up all the way from Massachusetts, right?
Indeed. We're going to be just talking today about different topics and just kind of have an open-ended conversation here about what we've had in our lives, about, United States and the freedoms we have and what we think is going on today.
Yeah, a little bit different show today, but it's going to be good, and hopefully you stick with us and enjoy the show.
Thanks. Welcome to Patriot Pravda.
Oh, yeah.
I've been down on bended knee, talking to the man from Galilee. He spoke to me in a voice so sweet, I thought I heard the shuffle of angels' feet. He called my name when my heart stood still, when he said, man, go do my
All right.
will. Go tell that
Welcome back.
Welcome to episode 10, Patriot Pravda.
Yes, with extra guests.
Yes, indeed. They actually came up from Massachusetts and surprised me. I did not know they were coming to Alaska. But without further ado, my good friend Corey Andrew, who I've known for 25 years, and Jake Henderson, who I've known for about the same amount of time.
How's it going?
So, today, what do you think, Luke? What do you just as a general question for all of us, what do you think the state of the United States is in right now? And can it be saved?
That is a very deep question.
It's also loaded, bro. Like, that's just...
I kind of agree. That is a bit of a loaded question.
Yeah, it is, but at the same time...
It's a good question, though.
It's going to be deep, and I think it just opens up a broader range of different questions,
Well,
too.
the real question is, what do you consider it to be, like, save the country? Like, to what extent?
Well, there's a lot of different things going on. I mean, you've got different, extreme sex education, and if you can call it that, sex education in public school systems these days. I mean, you've got drag queens coming in and reading books to children. You've got the education system telling kids that they might be a different sex than they are, or neither, or a little of both.
Which is completely inappropriate.
Agreed.
It's totally uncalled for.
So it's just, and this goes, this used to kind of just be a college thing, which is unacceptable in and of itself, but now it's trickling down to ages 5, 6, 7, being educated on this.
And younger.
Yeah.
I've had a few talks with some of the, where the kids are going for daycare.
Oh, really?
It's not so much like as it is elsewhere, but there are a few. There was one in particular, and yeah, everything about the interactions that I was seeing between said person and the boys was not acceptable, and I voiced my opinion. And so far, I haven't seen any issues with it since. And this person's pulled back away, and I don't have any issues anymore.
Okay.
Well, people, like, when we were 5 or 6, it's like, we're too busy eating crayons. Like,
What talking about? I still do that.
Right. What difference does it make to 5 or 6-year-old, like, sexual orientation?
They were
too busy trying to teach us to color inside the lines.
Exactly. Or not, scratch the chalkboard.
What they're trying to do is make this generation of young people confused so that they're powerless. They're going to be preoccupied with their own...
They're already...
Yeah.
Or like
confused.
us learning to read the phrase "see spot run." Like,
Yeah, it's gotten worse, and then especially with the advent of social media, everything's so universal now. Everyone can see everything. There's, parents think a good way to, pacify your kids if they're getting out of hand is to hand them your phone or hand them your iPad. But then from there, it just turns into another nightmare. You don't know what.
Yes, it does.
You think you're clicking on a video of Coco Melon, but 3 videos later, if they just let it play, something else pops up on the screen.
Right.
Which I've had issues with before. My son got a tablet as a present, which I didn't buy it I didn't agree with it, but it was something out of a good gesture, and we did utilize it occasionally for like car rides or something.
Yeah.
To keep him preoccupied. And then he started asking for it at the house, and I was like, all right, well, we'll try it. And then it just got out of hand where we would have a timer, and the timer would be up, and he would lose his mind, and he'd be like, no, I want it now. And I was like, no, all right. So it's in the closet. It hasn't been charged in months. I don't even know where it is really. And
he hasn't asked for it back?
He asks for it occasionally, but he doesn't. He has other things in it now that he does now. I got him a subscription to Kiwi Co. They send their brain games and their brain games. It's
science experiments, and
science
things like
experiments,
that.
and all this thing, but they're age appropriate, right? So the other day, or what was it, last month? He just got one while I've been up here, and he asked me if he could do it because we usually do them together. That way, there's interaction and whatnot. But he did the last one we did. It was bioluminescence stuff, right? So he built and they give you all the ingredient, all the parts for it and whatnot, and then there's just directions, and then there's a book, and it tells you everything. So we built a mushroom with glow-in-the-dark spots, right? You paint the top of it, put the spots on there. There was another one. It was a firefly, right? It's basically a sock. You put the stuffing in it, and the sock has painted bioluminescence on it. And then there's another one. You stick to the window. It's a jellyfish, and you pull strings on either side of it, and it chases.
Oh, that's cool.
Dances in the window, really.
Huh.
And he loves it. So
That's neat.
that's what we do now. And then we get him out. So I get him outside as much as I can. He's got Legos now. He's got building blocks. There's these magnet blocks he got, so he's interactive. But no, the tablet, we don't use the tablet.
Yeah, because he was exhibiting signs of addiction to the tablet.
Well, the same thing happened with my sister and her son. They bought him a Nintendo Switch for Christmas.
Yeah, no.
It's like, dude, he's 5. What does he need a Nintendo Switch for? And all he's going to do, because he plays with the Xbox 360 that we gave her years ago, and he'll play the Xbox, and when he gets mad, he smashes the controller on the ground. So what's going to happen if he gets mad at the Switch and then smashes the Switch on the table? Well, now his screen's broken, you know what I mean? There's $300 down the drain.
The tablet, yeah, you can do parental locks on the tablet and all that stuff, but there was a problem 2 years ago now, I think it was. YouTube was having a lot of issues where these videos were being pushed through.
Right.
They weren't being screened properly.
Right.
I don't remember the Momo or whatever it was.
Yeah,
You
that
remember
was
that?
huge.
Yeah.
Huge. Right. Well, and this is when they got the tablets shortly before this. And I had seen it and I heard about it and I was like, "There's no way." And I went on to you go onto YouTube and you log in or whatever and I just scrolled through the first page there and one of them popped up and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" So they weren't allowed on YouTube without us there with them. And then there was another one that popped up similar to that.
Yeah,
And I get on YouTube now because there's a few videos I watch. I watch some outdoor stuff and whatnot. And for the past 2 weeks, there's an ad for a quiz, and it's just, "Are you gay?" And that's the ad. It's a quiz. So you take the quiz, and it tells you if you're gay or not. I was like, all right, well, and I've clicked this thing every time it shows up, I click on it, and it's like, "Do you not want these ads?" And I was like, "No, I don't want these ads." And it shows up the next day, and the next day it's like, you can't get rid of it. I've actively chosen to not get these ads.
And then what's stupid is when they ask you, "Do you not want these ads?" And then it gives you a list of reasons why you don't want that. It's like, what difference are the reasons why I don't want them?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then those reasons aren't kept, and
Right. Nobody.
Exactly.
It's not like they pay attention to them.
yeah, and so it's
But the media it's too easy, way too easy to find things.
Or it says,
which
"Do
is
you
good.
not want to
It's
see
good to find things
content
easy.
related to
Exactly.
this?"
It's good that you're able to find things easy, but there's got to be some barriers.
Yeah, there's got to be a line
boundaries.
there.
Yeah, I remember even further back than 2 years ago, there was a big deal where it was there were episodes for kids, like Peppa Pig, for example.
He doesn't watch it. Yeah, we don't watch
Yeah,
that. That's
well,
not in-house.
what they were doing was they were starting out. It was the thumbnail on the video was perfectly innocent.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and then it would start playing an episode, enough for the parents to be like, okay, that's playing. I could walk away and do what I need to do. And then all of a sudden it would change into something really disturbing.
Really messed
Yeah.
up.
Really?
I've seen some of the videos. Yeah, they're not okay for anybody.
For anybody, let alone children.
That's
Yeah. And there was
upsetting.
And there were some people there were other videos that would find their way into those timelines, and they're videos that have some kind of connection to what was previously, I think they said Project Mockingbird,
Yes.
and all the stuff that the CIA did back during the Cold War, trying to build super soldiers, and those kinds of videos were finding their way into those timelines and popping up. If you just let a playlist play of like a kid show, then there was like this random like demonic like Mickey Mouse video that was also popping up.
Yep.
And so there's just all kinds of stuff. So it's just never a good idea to just hand technology to your kids. I think
See, the thing is that like that stuff is unmoderated. I mean, YouTube has billions of videos, whereas like when we were kids, mom might put us down in front of the TV, but at least the FCC was doing their job and filtering things, and only approved things were coming through.
Well, that's because mom was putting you in front of the TV and you were watching like Barney or like
But what I'm saying is there was nothing where like Barney would start and then all of a sudden it would turn into something demonic.
Yeah, I think.
Other than the drugs he was hiding in his tail.
What? Moot point.
Yeah, but the thing I think where we forget is what WWW stands for. There was back then we had technology, but it wasn't connecting the entire world. There wasn't input from everywhere connecting to it. And then it was really funny. I was having this conversation with my wife the other day about how when they were teaching us how to use the internet in schools, like in elementary school, we had class and they're like, what does WWW stand for?
Right.
And we all had to say, World Wide Web. And, they were teaching everybody what that was back then.
Yeah, I remember that.
And it's completely taken off. And people, I think, were a little bit naive in understanding what that actually meant.
There was definitely a lot of naivety in it.
Yeah, because now everyone's connected to the entire world, and anybody can put anything online, and it's it's very obvious now too, because the websites that we see now, the internet that we see, I think from what I understand statistically is only 10% of the actual information that's out there.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, like the dark web and Silk Road and all that kind of stuff out there. A lot of hidden internet.
I thought about trying to get on the dark web one time, just to see what was there. And then I was like, I watched something about the dark web. It was like a Vice, documentary or something like that.
Yeah.
I was like, nah, I don't need to go there. There's no reason. I mean, the dark web serves its purpose for a lot of evil, but, there's also reasons for the dark web, like countries with, no free speech stuff, and that enables them to, get outside that to an extent.
Yeah, and there was, I think Elon Musk was actually doing something like that. It was really cool when some of the Hong Kong protests were going on.
Yeah.
He had set up Starlink out there, and people were able to
talk to the outside world
Yeah.
and get information out.
Yeah, through different types of social media. But then those social media companies decided to shut off access to Hong Kong, so they weren't able to get stuff out anymore.
Oh, so they don't care about people.
No.
Okay.
Why would they?
Yeah.
Well, dude, everyone makes it sound like the dark web's so easy to access. I had a coworker who's like, hey, man, if you want to do this, just go here. And it's just like, how do you even get there, bro?
It is easy to access.
It is. It's just
there's a certain path you have to take to get to it, but once you know the path, the options and
it's just like going to It's just like going to Facebook.com.
It's like punching in a new website. That's all it is. But you have to follow the certain steps.
Yeah, it's not worth going to unless you're like a quality hacker and you can cover your tracks good.
Yeah. Yeah, there's really no point in going there. There's, for us in the United States, we have...
The minute you get there, you're tagged.
Yeah, well, that and we have free speech anyway. We're not, limited to what we can do or say to an extent. But, I mean, the only thing that a person in the United States would be going to the dark web for is to buy drugs or look at child pornography. I mean, that's really all it's for.
Nah, man, you can get a hitman on there for like 5
Well,
minutes.
yeah, I mean, there's
Same thing.
yeah, it's just you'd be up to no good.
Yeah, it's just all crime. Yeah.
But I mean, just in the aspect of where America is headed, back to kind of the root question that I asked is, this stuff that's being injected, and I say injected because it is kind of being forced to an extent.
Yeah.
This is raising a generation of children, and we were kind of the experiment. I mean, this has been going on for a long time, but I think they ramped it up when we were children, and now they're ramping it up another step or two. And people are catching on. They thought that I think they thought with the gradual introduction of it, with our generation, that we would be more accepting, and a lot of people from our generation are. But there's still a few of us out there that are against it. And now they've taken that extra step because they think that our generation is just going to sit back and take it and be like, our own children, because a lot of us are, old enough to be parents, such as yourself, Jake, that we would just kind of lie down and take it and just be like, oh, I guess, that's just the way it is. And, advancing humans.
Yeah, and I think that's part of what happened to the generation before us, because they had, in their time, they had, so it would have been Gen Xers.
Yeah.
And then before that, so you had the super far craziness with the baby boomers before that. And so, and that was all Woodstock and all that stuff. But then after that, those folks became parents to the Gen Xers, and that philosophy carried on into how they raised their kids.
Right, and then it carried on to how we were raised.
Yeah.
And I think that, myself and Jake and at least your parents, Corey, at least your mother, were cognizant of that because they, especially in particular, I think of my parents, they were pretty cognizant of what was, like, I never went to public school until my last year of high school.
Yeah, I didn't switch until 4th grade.
Yeah, so Corey and I went to a private school. I think, did you
No,
ever go
Jake
to
went to?
Yeah.
No, we all went to the same school.
It was a
We
private
all
Christian
went to
school.
Private Christian school.
Yep.
And then 4th grade I left.
And that's just because Mrs. Sun, dude, and her 4 hours of homework, bro.
Well, it was. Well, I don't think it was just that. There was
Other factors involved. The price was one thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
but
it
I
was,
ended up.
Yeah, but like we were never privy to that. Like that
Well,
aspect of it like never crossed our minds.
Yeah.
You know
Right.
what I mean?
No, I did that, and then we went to. I left halfway through the 4th grade year,
Same.
and I finished in. There was an elementary school down the street from us. I went to Four Corners. I went there,
Okay.
and then and then 4th and 5th for them, and then was homeschooled for 6th and 7th,
Yep.
and then 8th grade at Pioneer. I finished out there.
Well,
but-
same thing. I mean, I left the middle of 4th grade,
Yeah.
and I got there, and they were doing multiplication and long division, and we learned that
Oh, I passed every.
in Miss Kuchar's
I had
class in 2nd grade, dude. And
the
they,
best grades that I've ever had in school
were in 4th
at Four
grade.
Corners.
Because we're sitting there and they were like, all right, here's this worksheet, just do this real quick. And you're like, meh, 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 meh.
Yeah.
All right, here you go. And they're
Yeah,
it
like,
was done.
bro.
I think the private school that we went to was definitely good on the education. I mean, they were teaching us
The education was fantastic.
core structural, English, math, literature, things like that. But
I was reading by myself, like big books
First
by
grade.
myself.
Right, yeah,
in-
exactly.
No, I was in kindergarten.
kindergarten, yeah, because I wasn't reading the thick books, but
I would finish the book they gave us for the week on Monday. It would be done. We actually had to go back and ask for more books for me to read, and I had read all the books for the curriculum for kindergarten within the first half of the year. And then at that point, Mr. Sun was just like, "Well, just have him read at home, some other books,
Right.
and then we'll do, he can talk to me about them or whatever, and we'll keep a record of what he's read." And that's what I did.
But that just like goes to show you like the difference between like our parents going to school and us going to school. My dad stayed back in kindergarten like 4 times because he couldn't read. And it was only until someone like actually paid attention and realized that it wasn't that he couldn't read, he was blind. Like he couldn't see because
Yeah.
they didn't know that he needed glasses in kindergarten. And then they gave him these Coke bottle frame glasses to wear, and then he was totally fine.
Yeah, the BCGs.
But even on top of that, my Uncle Jim didn't learn to read until he was 40.
Yeah.
Really?
His sister had to go with him to job interviews so that she could fill out the applications for him.
Yeah, I mean, there's still people going into college these days that come out of the public school system and can't read.
Oh yeah.
Like, I'm still under the impression that, like, when him and I text back and forth to each other, he walks into the other room and hands his phone to his wife and says, "What did Corey say?"
Yeah, there's something that really blew my mind that I experienced was when I went to college, and the amount of college students that had never done their laundry before
Really?
Are you kidding me?
blew my mind.
I learned how to sew in high school.
Right.
Right.
Like a
Exactly.
sewing machine. We had there was this textiles
Economics
class.
class,
The
dude.
textiles class, and I learned that I made my own duffel bag that I used for the rest of the time I was in school.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. No,
I still have it.
yeah. And
Yeah,
maybe
I remember
it was-
that reminds me of a sewing class that I took in, what was it? Second grade.
Yeah, see?
Second grade, we had
Yeah.
a sewing class, and it was we made those little beanie babies essentially.
Yes.
But we learned the basics of sewing
Yeah.
in that. But anyway, continue. Sorry.
Yeah, and so it happened because I went to a private Christian college in Southern California, and the dorms were kind of almost like this apartment complex, and there was a separate building that was kind of like the laundromat, and so everybody would bring their laundry into this building. And one of my first weekends there, I walked in, I was doing my laundry, and one of the other students there, who had been there for about a year, from my understanding, was just like looking at one of the washer machines, and he's staring at it, kind of looking confused. I was like, "Hey, you need a hand there? You get?" He's like, "I'm not quite sure how to get this thing working." I'm like it's a washing
Cringe
machine.
moment.
Yeah, like it's a washing machine, my guy. It's
You push the on button
yeah.
and you put your clothes in.
Yeah. And I was like,
Essentially.
Reverse that. Close in, then push the on button.
Well, the ones we have, you have to turn them on in order to do anything anyway. I mean,
Anyway.
you can open it, but you still have to turn it on to start it and all that.
Moot point.
Yeah, but they but he had no clue of what to do. I was like, "Do you have soap? Do you have, do you know what you need to do this?"
Do you have the fabric softener?
Yeah, and I had to kind of like walk him through the process, and I was just stunned. I was like, I've been washing my own clothes since I was like 6. Like, how do you not know how to do that?
I mean, that does seem a bit ridiculous.
I mean, I remember being a kid, and I don't know if I did laundry, like put them in the washing machine, because we did have, it was, one of the top load ones. But as soon as I could get stuff in there, I'm pretty sure my mom was having me do it. But I do remember.
5 years old, right?
Yeah, no kidding, right? I do have recollection of, her bringing up the dried laundry and being like, all right,
And
I
then
want you to
helping fold
separate it. Yeah, separate it out.
Yeah.
And then, towels and washcloths, our kids' clothes, me and my sisters, and then my parents' clothes. And then we have to fold it up and put it away.
And now laundry is the bane of all of our existence.
Eh.
I don't think I've put I went out and I bought a dresser recently, and my clothes are still in my hamper.
Oh, yeah. I have a dresser, too. I don't use it.
I think I have like 2 pairs of pants and some pajamas in the
I have a
dresser.
hamper
Everything
for
else is
clean
nothing
clothes and a hamper for dirty clothes. And then wash them, put them in the clean one, and then just, as you wear it, throw it in the dirty one. I don't
Yeah,
fold in clothes.
yeah. My wife had a dresser that we
the
moved up
birds.
here from San Diego, and the way we had our room arranged in our house, she needed to use it, so she was using it for a while, and then we changed our bedroom to one of the upstairs bedroom because there's 4 bedrooms in the house, and the upstairs bedroom has kind of this almost sort of walk-in closet kind of thing. It's like a kind of half walk-in closet.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And then, so I didn't have a place to put my clothes, so she gave me the dresser, and then she puts all her clothes in the walk-in closet thing. But yeah, same situation. I'm still trying to get them out of the hamper after I
really
wash
nice,
everything.
dresser too. I didn't want one of those IKEA ones or the fake wood ones. So I actually went on online and I looked around to see if there was any like used stuff. It's oak. It's solid oak.
Heavy.
It's so heavy. It's got this huge vanity mirror on it for whatever reason. I don't know. It's got it in case I need it. But it's got 6 drawers, right? Big drawers. There's a small center drawer, and then it's got a door that pops out, and there's two drawers behind it, which is kind of neat. But like I got my Xbox on it and my laptop, so I can plug it into the TV and watch my movies and stuff. But other than that, like it just kind of sits there.
Mm-hmm. Well, the problem is like when I finally like get the energy to take the clean clothes like out of the basket and fold them, and then you look at it, it's like, wow, there's so much more room in here once I get this stuff out of the way.
Exactly.
We're rabbit trailing hard.
We are
are.
trailing hard.
It's totally okay though.
So back to main question. Actually, I got another question, and it falls under the main question kind of thing. Do we think that the U.S. because I think ultimately when the U.S. started, the U.S. was the good guy for the most part, across the world when it comes to conflicts and things like that.
Right.
But do we think at this point, the U.S. and I guess you could say the U.S. in this case, our government is
no longer the good guy?
Yeah. Do we think they're the good guy now, or do we think they're no longer the good guy?
I don't know if I would say no longer the good guy. I mean, I do think that we have a lot of issues, and there's definitely some corruption that is blatant that people just look over. But I definitely feel like we are a bully now. In a world where we are trying to crush bullying, like you can't even say hardly anything to anybody without hurting somebody's feelings.
Yeah.
So,
And that's coming down from the top.
it's coming out from the top, yeah. So, at every turning point, everybody's trying to squash bullying. And I'm not saying bullying is good, right? It's not. And that's where we're at. I think we're a bully. We've gotten to the point where we're this huge world power, and we want to stay there. But in order to stay there, we feel, up high feels that we need to be in everybody else's business.
Yeah, we have to control certain things.
And we don't.
Yeah.
We need to focus on here and now in our own country.
Well, we've solved, world hunger. This is the way that I see it. It's like, okay, the U.S. is looking outside of what's going on. Okay, so what you're telling me is there's no hunger in the United States. There's no homeless people in the United States. Our infrastructure is great. Our GDP is awesome. We've got everything going for us. We've got, we're self-sustaining with raw materials such as oil and ore and other things like that, and farming, food, all that stuff. So now we can start focusing on things outside. No, we've got a lot of issues internally that we just need to take care of. But I think that it's almost, I think that the current state of the U.S. government is, there's a lot of evil.
Yeah.
In the U.S. government, a lot of evil people, self-serving, and not only just self-serving, Satan-serving. I mean, I'll just go ahead and say it. And I think that we're not just technically bullying, we're also actively destroying. The United States government is actively destroying its own people.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I'll agree with that as well.
Yeah.
It's
Just based on what we've seen in the last since 2020.
Oh yeah.
Just based on that alone, let alone what's happened in the past. But I mean, I've been saying this since episode 1 is that I think after World War II, with a lot of organizations that got started in order to defeat the Nazis and the Japanese Empire in World War II,
they should have been temporary.
They should have been temporary. They should have been disbanded after the war, and that would have been the end of that. All the people that worked in those should have gone on to something else. But no, it was allowed to stay, and it grew into it served its purpose. Its purpose was good, and then all of a sudden after the war, you had a lot of these idle hands, unoccupied, and they just kind of found whatever they wanted to do, and they were still behind this veil of secrecy that was left over from World War II, collecting a paycheck, big budgets, and basically started to self-justify. And then they got their buddies into higher places within the government. You had different leaders in those organizations that went on to pursue political careers, which then helped sustain those organizations. One example is the Office of Strategic Services, the OSS, which was necessary in World War II, and then that turned into the CIA. And the CIA, in my honest opinion, has really done nothing but muck things up, both internally and externally.
But yeah, from the point of episode 1, we've been, we've made little jokes here and there about, the FBI is listening to us, or something like that. But
they're definitely listening now.
And I've said too, like and I've mentioned this again since episode 1, that after World War II, most of the population was just like, okay, the war's over. Let's get back to it. Let's build our lives. Let's buy a house, buy a car, live the American dream, have a family. Right. Raise our kids in peace. We defeated a great power, a great evil power, and then all of a sudden we just stopped paying attention as a people. And they took that and ran with it. And unfortunately, a lot of wicked people started, being drawn into government power, and just it went on from there, and it was never checked. I mean, I think we should have had, to be honest, I really think that by 1960 to 65, we should have restarted. We should have wiped the slate clean and started over again. Now, I'm not one to advocate for violence all the time, but there comes a time, I mean, it's in our Constitution that, with the having a militia, well-regulated militia, and that militia was meant to, quell tyranny where it came up,
Yeah.
And as hard as it is to, say, okay, where is the line that you draw? And then if where do you draw the line? And then say, okay, if you cross this line, okay, you're going to either wind up dead or you're going to be in prison forever.
Yeah,
for the rest of your life.
And the crazy thing is, since the government has realized the reality of the use of militias, and since then, the vast majority of states have legislation forming militias illegal, and that's gone completely under the radar. People haven't. You don't see anyone fighting against that, right? Like you see people fighting for free speech or firearms or anything like that.
Right.
It's part of the Second Amendment, for the right for people to.
Well, what they're going to say is, we have an army now. We have the Army National Guard. We have the reserves. We have the Marine reserves. Things like that. And like we don't need militia. Well, militia aren't supposed to be on a payroll of a federal organization or federal government. They are private citizens.
Yeah.
They're private citizens who volunteer, and they
volunteer to protect their communities.
Right, communities
and their freedoms. That's what it is.
Yeah, the whole point of militias was that they weren't an arm of the government.
Right.
Correct.
And there's even
They were the arm of the people.
Right. There's even historical legislation that you can read about that there are separating stipulations between the military of the federal government and the militias that states formed. So there's separations and all that.
Yeah. The other thing that concerns me too is the militarization of police forces.
Oh yeah.
That they were not supposed to be what they are now. They are almost a militia in and of themselves, a self-serving militia.
They are, of course, a self-serving militia.
Yeah. And they serve to protect themselves, and they're the people who sign their checks.
Yeah, and it's even more so now. I don't think you could have said the same thing even 5 years ago. I think in the last 4 years that's become a thing. Since the start of Black Lives Matter and a lot of the whole defund the police movement and police not being able to do their jobs without it becoming a racial issue, a lot of good police that weren't self-serving that were part of the force then have all but left now. And so now you do have the bootlicking, self-serving police officer that's going to do whatever the mayor or whoever says, or they're going to write up whatever kind of paperwork they can write up to protect themselves. And so that's why you have what you have now is just a whole bunch of bad police.
Yeah. Well, the militarization aspect was more along the lines of equipment, which has been going on for more than 5 years. That's been going on for a long time.
Yeah.
And because I was going to bring up, the U.S. government has sold, surplus MRAPs, mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicles, to police forces.
What do they need that for?
Yeah, why do they need an MRAP that can withstand a 60-pound explosive device and is mostly bulletproof to small arm fire? I mean, I can understand for certain aspects, but if it's really that bad, that's where a militia would come in.
A militia or even the National Guard.
Yes.
Right? But then again, National Guard is going to take a while to get there.
Yeah, your militia would be a quick reaction force.
Would be the quick reaction force.
Yeah, and they would be required to be well regulated, as stated in the Constitution.
Exactly.
Right. No, and they would be well, trained. That would be on their own time. The leader of that organization, that local militia, would be in charge of training, and you would be required, if you wanted to be part of that militia, you would be required to show up. Yep. Required to go undergo training. Maybe you all pitch in. Maybe your community all pitches in to buy the equipment needed. Certain things like that. I'm not talking MRAPs, but I'm talking, maybe some body armor or helmets or communication devices.
Yeah,
and there was your PPE, your comms.
Yep.
Yeah, there was rank and structure
and
order.
It's not just like one of those Mad Max things, where everybody's running around doing their own, thing. But but it would be a professional organization, and that's what concerns me is the equipment that these police forces have. Some of these police departments, so big cities, were better outfitted than my Army unit.
Oh yeah, I would guarantee you
definitely more than mine.
Yeah, so Jake here was
Southern California State Police
in the Marines.
Were.
Yep. So Jake was in the Marines. Luke, you were in the Marines. I was in the Army. Corey, unfortunately, due to some health issues in the past, you couldn't join. I know you would have if you had the opportunity to.
I tried. My recruiter told me to lie to the medical examiner.
Yeah, no.
Somehow I didn't think dishonorable discharge would look good on any job application.
No,
it doesn't. It doesn't.
So
yeah,
I honestly thought about it though.
I remember I had a.
That's how I got to get in. That's how I got to get in. But
I had a set of MVGs and
night vision goggles.
Yeah, night vision goggles. I had them, and I tried to get them repaired. They weren't working. They were broken. They didn't focus. It was a green screen. That's all it was. So there's no picture. I tried for 4 months to get these fixed, to get these looked at, and we ended up going to a training evolution, and I wasn't using them. We were doing night ops. I wasn't using them. My squad leader comes over and he tells me to put them on, and I was like, they don't work. They're broken. And he's like, well, you're just doing it wrong. And at this point, I've already been in for 7 years. I'm pretty sure that I know how to use these. So he grabs them from me, and he tries to focus them, and he can't get them to work. He's like, these things are broken. I was like, yeah, I've been telling you for 5 months, 4 or 5 months. He goes, all right, we'll just put them away. Put them on your head so it looks like you're using them. I was like, all right. They got fixed. I got new ones when I got back. Well, they weren't new, but
they focused.
They did work.
Yeah, I had, so I was issued an M4 when I deployed, and, I've had to use the rifle several times, but every time I went to go charge the weapon, so on an M4, the charging handle is above the stock, and I'd grab it, I'd pull it back, and you'd let the bolt, load around, put it into the chamber, and then the bolt would slam forward. Well, every time I did that, the firing pin would just barely tap the primer on the round that I put in the chamber.
Oh,
so it would dimple it, and that's dangerous because you can have a misfire, well, not a misfire, a negligent discharge, they call it, when really it would just be a malfunctioning piece of equipment.
Yeah, a negligent discharge inside a half open chamber.
Yeah,
as it's slamming forward.
Yep. So I brought this to our armorer, and he basically looked it over, took some measurements, and was like, "No, it's good to go. You can have it back. It's not going to go off." Well, every time I chamber around, it would dimple the primer, And I'm lucky that it didn't go off. I really am. But because when you fire a weapon like that, the hammer hits hits the firing pin. Firing pin is forced into the primer. And the primer, it's just a little tiny dimple. It looks like if you took a sharpened pencil and just jammed it into a table, or maybe a duller pencil and just jammed it into a table and make a mark about that big. But I thought it was going to go off every single time. So it was definitely, not.
I mean, that's all it is anyway. It's just a dimple in the back of the shell.
It is. That's what it looks like. And it was
Right.
almost deep enough to look like it was going to go off.
Yeah,
That's scary.
I don't know about you, Jake, but when I went through boot camp, we were still training with like old school like Vietnam flak jackets.
This might upset you. we did have the interceptors when I went through. I think we were one of the last ones to get those. They were phasing them out. But I also received a new M16A4. They brought the crates in.
Oh, I had
They
a
pulled them out of
A4.
the crates and they handed them to us. And then they were like, "All right, clean the packing grease off these."
Did you guys have were you still iron sights?
We were the last ones. One of the last ones with iron sights. Yes.
Yeah, we had.
So I think there was two the following year. When I had already been in the fleet at this point, we got some guys come through and they had not used iron sights at boot camp.
So what were
Yeah.
they using at that point?
The
ACOGs after that.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah, everyone has ACOGs.
I went through
So then they'll
and
give
qualified with iron sights on a. So when I went through basic training, I went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and they were so backed up with new recruits that they actually had to stand up a brand new unit for basic training.
Yeah.
So your basic training unit is a company.
Oh yeah, because back then the Army National Guard, dude. I couldn't tell you how many potheads from my high school went and joined the Army National Guard and walking around in their
Yeah.
ACUs
It was
back home.
it was
Yep.
it was pretty bad. I mean, there was a lot of new recruits going through,
gross.
so they had to stand up a new unit, and they basically grabbed drill sergeants, one or two drill sergeants from other units.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
They had to stand up. My unit was stood up, or my boot camp platoon was stood up. The last time my unit or my boot camp platoon had been there was back in the 60s.
Oh, really?
It had been
Yeah,
that
you
long.
remember them saying that? Yeah. I do.
No.
I remember that when we went to see you graduate.
But
there was so many of us going through at the time. They're like, we
need more. Yeah. So I was part of.
Oh, that's when they opened up Quebec Company, right? Was that it? Or
No, I was Delta.
okay?
He was in Paris Island.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, were you? Okay. That's right. You were Pennsylvania. I was thinking California.
Yeah, I was just saying, I thought you would have gone to California being over here, but I didn't realize you were in.
No, he grew up in
what
Pennsylvania.
battalion were
realize
you?
that.
I was 3rd Battalion, my
Okay,
company.
up there.
Yeah.
So over in 1st Battalion, my company, there's the barracks, right? That's where
Yeah.
everybody was at, except my platoon. There wasn't enough room in there. So those trailers next to 1st Battalion, which from my understanding, now it's the barber shop.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
where my platoon was. That's where I was at.
That's funny.
The problem is those trailers are soundproof.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So when we were getting yelled at, no one on the island knew unless you walked up to the door.
Yeah. So when I was there, we were the 1st platoon because 3rd Battalion was way
You
far
guys
away.
are out in the middle of nowhere. Yeah.
Well, they moved it closer.
Really?
Yeah. 3rd Battalion was now right next to where the big newer mess, because there was the 3rd Battalion mess hall that was like way far away.
Yeah, it's almost at the rifle range.
Yeah. But then there was they had built a newer mess hall that was closer to,
More centralized.
yeah.
Yeah.
And they built the new 3rd Battalion right next to it. Yeah.
So you don't have to walk a mile to get chow?
No.
Yeah. So when I went in, they stood up this new unit, and I was part of the 787 Military Police Battalion. They just threw us in, but so the 787 consisted of 4 companies, and it was laid out in a square. And then in the center of the square, so on each corner of the square was a barracks building. We called them starships because they were pretty decent sized buildings. And they, had a shower and big bays, for all the soldiers and bunks and all that stuff. And then in the center was your, basically where you'd get worked out, the pit. And then they had a chow hall. Well, we were
Making sugar cookies.
Yeah.
Yep.
We were just about a half a mile away in what we called tornado bait. which was just tin shacks with 2 heaters and 30-man bunks, and then a latrine. And then there was, I think, 8 buildings full, and one female building. So we did have some females in our group. But yeah, since it was a brand new unit, they broke out the brand new M4s.
Nice.
Not a scratch on them. Same thing. Had to clean the grease. Had to go through them, and then I didn't get mine completely clean. A lot of guys didn't get theirs completely clean of packing grease, and so they had us go out and fire blanks.
There you go.
And that filled up the grease with carbon and just made it
That's a lot.
almost impossible to clean.
Yeah. No, they gave it. They pulled them out. They gave it to us. We got our serial number memorized down, and they're like, "Here's baby wipes and rubbing alcohol. Clean them." We spent the whole day.
Yeah, and
doing
those
knowledge and cleaning.
those like
Now, were
6
you
inch
guys
long
required
Q-tips.
to memorize your serial numbers on your own rifle?
Yes.
Yeah.
We
of
have
course.
to we're required to memorize everything.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah. We had,
I still remember my ID number.
ID number, serial number, general orders. I mean,
All,
there was
all your
it
bank
was-
information.
Yeah, it was
and
an
all that,
endless
yeah.
list of things you had to memorize. Yeah, but getting back to it is like, what we went through in the military is now changing too.
It's so different.
You know, as far as training
that's the other-
requirements, training. Now it's not a privilege. You know, when I went through basic training, I got off the bus into a reception building. All of my personal stuff went into a bag. I turned off my cell phone. It went into an envelope with my name on it.
Yep.
And all my other personal stuff disappeared.
Yep.
Yeah.
I saw my cell
Blue
phone.
money value bag.
I saw my cell phone one time after that, and it was day 1 of basic training when I was in my unit.
Pocket.
Day 1 of basic training when I was in my unit. It was before phone cards were purchased. So they allowed us to make one 1-minute phone call from our cell phones, and then they took them all back.
Yeah, that's
Even
where the
that
Marine
was
Corps is
only-
different.
Only to let your parents know you got there okay, wasn't it?
No, you got to let your parents know that you got there, or
They had
your
landlines.
They had landlines.
I didn't get that call.
Yeah, no, really?
Really?
Yeah, the call never went through.
Yeah, I left a message.
I didn't even do that. I got in. I wasn't able to. So I called.
Yeah, but nobody answered
I
your
called.
house phone anyway,
It
dude.
wasn't that no, because everybody was waiting for the phone call. So it called and it was dead. Right? And then I was like, all right, so I hung up real quick and I went to dial it again. And one of the instructors, female instructor, come up behind me. Hang up the phone. I was like, oh. And at that point, you can't say anything. So I was like, all right, click, hung up. So my mom didn't hear anything for like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Until my first letter got to
Right.
her.
Wow.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, because we get the one phone call when we get there, and then they're there screaming at you the whole time, and they tell you exactly what to say.
Yeah, there's a script.
And then
yeah, it's
that's it.
posted right there.
Yep.
Is it?
Yes.
Yeah, right on the phone.
It's like, hello, mom, father, or whatever it is. I've made it safely to, such and such.
My graduation's this date.
Yep.
Be there.
Be there. Click.
That's it.
Yep. That's all you're allowed to say. Yep.
Oh boy.
I was
But
saying, the
now
only
it's-
reason yours wouldn't have gone through though is because the whole time growing up when we were hanging out in your house and the phone would start, don't bother answering.
It's still that way.
Uh,
They have cell phones.
I do remember this one instance where we got off the motor coach, got into the reception hall, and I don't know what this girl's recruiter told her. No. She brought almost every stitch of clothing she had, to include shoes. She had multiple bags that rolled that, like, she couldn't pick them up. They were that heavy. And the drill sergeants there were like, what is going on with, like,
You going on vacation?
you going on? Yeah, they were like, you going on vacation? What are you here for? You here for a good time? Because you're not. These are all mine now. And I came, and my recruiter told me, he's like, only bring, like, a change of clothes in case you get stuck somewhere, which I did.
Nope.
Well, it was just I was given like one of those cheap backpacks, basically, and I just had one change of clothing in it and some personal hygiene stuff, and that was it. And that got that disappeared.
Yeah, I had clothes on my back, and I got my hair cut before I went because I knew them trying to shave off because I had long hair my senior year of high school, and I knew when I got there they were gonna shave it off, and trying to all the way down to skin shave, a head full of long hair hurts.
Yeah.
And it sucks. So I made sure I got my hair cut really short before I left.
I had
still shaved it though, didn't they?
I had
Oh, yeah.
shorter hair. It wasn't too bad, but here's the when
I
I
didn't
got
have
there.
to rip it out of my head though.
When I got there, it was a Saturday morning, or actually, I'm sorry, it was a Friday night going into Saturday, and nobody was open. So the barbershop wasn't open, the clothing and sales weren't open, and so I basically sat and stewed in nervousness for 2 days, and then on Monday, I was finally. Well, actually, no, I take that back. The drill sergeant that I was with, Drill Sergeant Moose, I'll never forget that. He's like, "Your hair is terrible." He's like, "I'm going to take you to the post PX barber shop and I'm going to pay for your haircut." And that's exactly what happened. We had to go before it was Saturday afternoon because Drill Sergeant Moose he hated looking at me.
Bro,
And,
I remember seeing you with your head shaved for the first time, and it was the weirdest thing ever because you had always had just hair like down to right above your ears, down the back of your neck, and just like Rob with a buzzed head was just like the
Same
strangest thing to
Same
look.
haircut forever.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then you actually go somewhere, or you get out in the fleet, and then there's like things that whatever shop you're with or whatever unit or thing, and there's certain things that they do if it's like your first time in country or first time on the boat or something like that. Like
Just a little initiation.
Yeah. So for us, it was like first time we were at sea. If it was your first time on the boat, you had to beforehand grow a mustache out, and then
Why?
before you go on the boat, you had to shave your head completely bald, like Bic, like clean,
Pick it, yep.
and then then just still have this like thick mustache, and it had to be
Within
within
regs.
regs.
Within regs.
Yep.
But all you had was the thick mustache and just completely bald head. But that was the thing.
Yeah, that's just an initiation thing to do. I mean, it's just like welcome. You're one of us if you do this type of thing, Another funny story about Drill Sergeant Moose was the second night I was there in the reception. You have all these bunks and you're nervous. I mean, you're just because you haven't quite hit basic training yet. You're just getting all your administrative stuff done, and you're getting your shots. You're getting, if you need glasses, you're getting your glasses, your prescriptions, your uniforms are all getting issued to you. But anyway, I was going to sleep, and all of a sudden, the fire alarm went off, and I couldn't really sleep because I was just so nervous. But the fire alarm went off, and I bolted up. I got out. We mustered outside and got to the evacuation spot, and it turns out that somebody didn't want to be there and tried to escape, and took the closest exit. And they caught up to him. They caught him, but we were all outside and it was cold. It was January in Missouri, and it was chilly. And I was only in shorts and basically a t-shirt because I hadn't really been issued anything yet. And Drill Sergeant Moose is talking to us. He's like, "I'm going to hem you all up," and I'm using refrained language here. It's like, "I'm going to hem you all up if the fire alarm goes off again. This, that, and the other thing. Just hammer it to us for probably a good solid hour at 2:00 in the morning." And we all go back to bed for an hour and then get up and start again. Well, that next night, guess what happened? The fire alarm went off.
Really?
Yeah. And we all muster outside, get to the evacuation point, square up. Except this time, as I'm running to the evacuation point, I smell smoke. A lot of it.
So it's like actually a fire.
So, yeah, we get outside, and Drill Sergeant Moose comes out, and he is beet red. And he's like, "All right, soldiers, this one's on me." Or recruits, rather, because we weren't soldiers yet. He's like, "All right, this one's on me. I had a bag of popcorn in the microwave, and I put it on way too long." So and I didn't just smell smoke as I was running through there. I turned to my left where their little office was.
Yeah,
and
the duty hut.
Yeah, filled with smoke. Popcorn smoke.
That's hilarious.
So we all go back to bed after about 2 minutes of being yelled at for his fault. But nobody got. Yeah,
of course.
Yeah.
He can't just be out there and take he's got to yell at
Well,
somebody.
he said it was his fault, and he was kind of chuckling to himself because he knows that the night before he's like,
somebody else must have laughed then.
Yeah.
Somebody else must have laughed. That's why he kept yelling out there.
Yeah. Yep. So that was it couldn't have been any more ironic than that. If the fire alarm goes off again tomorrow night, we're going to be out here doing this all night long. And it's like, oh. And then as soon as it went off that night, I'm like, You got to be kidding me. We just went over this. Which one of you?
Who are we beating half to death tonight? When we tie 'em? Yeah.
Well,
Who are we tying down to their bunk?
Yeah.
You gonna learn today.
You know, this has been a good episode 10. I mean, you know, what we're really just trying to do is just, you know, I guess, just not hash this all out. I mean, we've rabbit trailed a lot during this episode, but you know, it's all in good fun, I guess. I mean,
Good spirits.
Good spirits. I mean, what we're really trying to, you know, is what I'm getting at is let's not make things easier for people just because it's easier. You know, what they're really trying to do. I mean, with basic training today, I've heard stories that they're allowed to have their cell phones. You know, they're allowed to have certain other privileges that we weren't ever considered.
So you got to remember, I spent just about 7 years with my unit, and then from there I went to Geiger. So I went to the School of Infantry, and I worked operations for H&S.
Mm-hmm.
So I dealt
So
with
you
all the
saw
permanent
the new-
personnel.
Yeah.
I didn't directly work with the students there. I was permanent personnel. I dealt with permanent personnel, but I was in H&S battalion. I was in H&S company there. So everything, all the issues with the students that would come through, I'm in the same office and I hear everything.
Yeah.
And a lot of these kids they're coming up there for drug offense. You name it, they're up there getting in trouble. NJPs weekly, man, and no one wants to be there. NJP, all non-judicial punishment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was what it was, but I couldn't remember.
Yeah, so it's just they're getting in trouble and they're getting their punitive punishments for all of this.
And they haven't even made it. Basically, they've made it out of basic training. Or
they're out of
boot
basic
camp,
training.
They're still in their school. Job specific.
Their job specific training, and none of them want to be there. And they're doing whatever they can to get out. We had, I want to say 3 or 4 conscience objectors.
Yeah.
In the Marine Corps.
Wow.
Where you volunteer to be.
Yeah.
And none of it makes any sense. It didn't make any. And then the problem with all that is like, all right, if you don't want to do it anymore, fine. I don't care. That's not my, it's not my business.
Yeah,
it's your problem.
If you're going to be a conscientious objector, why join the military?
Exactly. Right. So that's not even the problem of it. The problem is they get there and they've already had all this money put into their training, and now they're going to do this. They're going to get in trouble. Conscious objector, anything, and all these issues, they get in trouble, and now they have to be administered out, right?
Yeah.
6 to 9 months.
Yeah, it's just a waste of time.
6 to 9 months where they're still collecting a paycheck.
Wait, so if they decide they want to be a conscientious objector, the military doesn't see any use for them anymore?
No, why
don't.
would they?
The Marine Corps, you don't want to be here. You don't need to be here.
Yeah, because all they're going to be is just to drag on everybody else.
So at that point, all these drug offenses, these alcohol offenses, all the problems, right? So when you have a bad apple, and it's not always this way, but when you have a bad apple and you put it with a batch of apples, right, good apples, it's going to spread.
Right.
And I've seen it countless times. So it takes 6 to 9 months to get these kids out. And in that time, they're taking up space, they're taking up time.
Getting paid.
They're getting paid for this. They
So
sit around.
tax
They're
dollars.
getting paid to sit around and do nothing. All they're used for really is guard duty, and
Cleaning latrines.
and stuff like that.
Mopping, polishing. Yeah.
6 to 9 months. That makes no sense. If they don't want to be here, fine. Here you go. This is what happens. You're gone. Then you're not taking up 2 to 4 instructors for kids that don't want to be there.
Yeah.
From my time in SOI to for training, and then being there as permanent personnel and seeing all of this, it is a night and day.
Yeah, I felt that our training sometimes wasn't adequate enough for the tasks that we were assigned. A lot of our training consisted of PowerPoints. The SHARP training, sexual harassment and rape prevention classes, were a required thing. I think at least once a year, if not twice a year. And different things like that. Now, I did go to several different schoolhouses. Combat Lifesaver.
Yep.
And we had some IED training. We had different courses that they set up with OPFOR, opposing force. But a lot of our training I felt was inadequate. There were some situations that I was faced with that, you know, when I was deployed that were sketchy, and I didn't know really how to deal with them. And this is the other thing that I can compare and contrast with the police force. You know, if their life feels threatened, it's almost like they can pull their weapon and use it without, you know, they didn't have to see a gun. I mean, there's been so many different incidences where a suspect has been shot regardless of innocence or guilt.
There's no positive ID. There's no positive identification.
No positive ID, different things like that. Now, if I had done half the stuff that these modern police have been doing, I'd be in a federal prison right now.
Well, did you hear about what happened to that guy that got pulled over a couple weeks ago? 6 cops pulled him over. They didn't even ask for a license or registration. One of them pulled him out, and they have this on body cam, helicopter cam. They literally beat the crap out of this man on the side of the road for no reason. Mm-hmm. They pulled him out of his car.
Well, there's more to it than that.
But he died like 3 days later in the hospital.
Yeah.
There was some of the things that were connected to that was apparently there was a connection between a baby mama and one of the police officers and that guy, and so, it was. I saw the video and I was like, this was gang violence. That's what it was.
Now
at one point, like one of the guys held his head and the other dude just like literally like field goal kicked this dude in the face.
Yeah. There was and there's been other incidences like that, guaranteed, that were not caught, that were brushed under the rug, and they got away with it.
Oh, absolutely.
Of course.
But in the circumstances with ours, now I'm not saying that our rules of engagement were wrong. I think they were a little too tight in some spots.
They were definitely too tight. So when I went to Afghanistan and we left, when we got there, before we even got there, we were told, unless you have positive ID, you can see them, and you can't lose it. If you lose positive ID, you can't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right? Unless you take accurate fire for more than whatever, you can't fire back. Our hands were tied. We couldn't do anything.
Yeah, we had basically hostile intent or hostile action. Hostile intent is being a weapon pointed at you. And then there's hostile action, which is actively being shot at. I mean, there's been times where we were rolling through Coast City where we were actively taking grenades, hand grenades.
Yeah.
In fact, one of my buddies, we had a grenade thrown over some wall into the roadway, and he was driving a truck with dual wheels, and the grenade got caught in between the dual wheels and then touched off, and so we had 2 flats. And we didn't know where it was coming from, but we didn't have positive identification on anything, so
you can't do anything.
Couldn't do anything. So all we could do was just basically lip this truck out into an area, pull security, and change the tires.
That's how it was for us when we were there.
And we couldn't go chasing anybody. We couldn't lock down the area. Nothing. We couldn't, there was nothing like that. Now, if something similar had happened, let's just say a rock was thrown over a wall and it hit a police car, or something along those lines, they would start actively searching them out,
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
There's been people that they saw a wallet and mistook it in their mind as if it were a weapon, and they were shot. I mean, I couldn't actively defend myself or my other guys unless I actually positively, unquestionably saw that it was a rifle or some other sort of weapon. And this has happened too, where we were rolling back through. There was a Afghani National Police outpost, and one of those Afghani National Police decided to point a pistol at one of my guys, and then he put it down. Couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah, because there's no hostile intent anymore, and I use that loosely.
Yep. So, what we did end up doing was pulling over, going in, talking, because it was actually at an A&P outpost, so we did pull over, go in there, talk to the A&P commander. They pulled him aside and unofficially gave him a beating of his life.
Yeah,
handled it. But that's,
what was his reasoning for pointing the gun at one of you?
You'll never know. We'll never know that either. There was so many different incidents where they had inside guys that, the Taliban and things like that had people on the inside. Those organizations were corrupt. Do you know how many billions of dollars we've spent on equipment for those organizations?
Yeah, we left it all there.
Yeah, we left it all there, but also even in the interim, I mean, brand new trucks, brand new Ford Rangers, brand new infantry carrying, cargo trucks, weapons. And not only that, their infrastructure was paid for by us. Like all the roads, most of the roads that I was on were paved.
Well, yeah, because President Biden's brother is a contractor, and so a lot of those
Were lucrative contracts for them.
Went to those countries and started rebuilding those things, started investing in their infrastructure in those countries so they could build things up, and that's how friends of politicians in this country.
If we build the roads and pave the roads, then there's no way they can get IEDs under them.
Yeah.
And they did.
Yeah, they still did because they're all extremely crafty over there.
Oh yeah, they're super crafty. A lot of them
ridiculous.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I seen a video. They were redoing the acid batteries. He pulled the entire thing apart, cleaned it,
put new lead paste on the wafers.
Yeah, and they put it all back together. I was like, how do you, even plastic melted the case back together. I was like, that's a, and his hands were like silver with all this. I hope you wash your hands after that, but I know you're not gonna.
No, and I'm a mechanic today currently, but I've seen some of the more interesting repairs done, like guys pulling engine blocks on the side of the road to put a new piston in.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, they were quite ingenuitive. I mean, just with like a hammer and a stick.
Yeah.
I mean, he could pull his engine out. I'm being a little sarcastic, but I mean, there would seem to be no limit to what they could do.
Well, yeah. The thing about the Afghani forces out there, the police or the people, we invested so much time into them, but 90% of the time they would never stand their ground.
Yeah,
they just run away.
Yeah, they do. A lot of them were cowards. A lot.
And for them, it was to be on the side of the U.S. was also a spiritual matter for them as well, because in that country because that country is ruled by Islam, and so the rules of their religion are written into, it's a theocracy. It's written into how that country and how those rulers rule their people and groups and stuff like that. So I think the reasons why they tended to be more or less cowards is because it was, for them, is tied to their religion, to their salvation. If they were going against their leaders or going against the people that rule their country,
they were going against Allah.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah, and the other thing too is maybe they didn't want to be in that situation. Maybe they wanted to be on the side of the U.S. Maybe they wanted independence. They wanted to be out from the cruelty of the Islam rulers.
Yeah.
And they joined the ANA or the ANP, Afghani National Army, and the police force, and were fighting with the U.S. But their families were in an area that were controlled, and their families were under threat.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing. That's the other leverage that they were using.
Yeah, I was just listening to a discussion on this particular subject today about the withdrawal and things like that, and the amount of time that we spent out there in that country, from 2001. And I mean, we were there before then for a while for other goings on.
Right.
But the time that we spent there, we still thought that we could, one, trust the deal that we made with Al-Qaeda. We made a deal, we're going to extract and you guys aren't going to do anything. And they said, oh, yeah. And for whatever reason, we believed them. That's one big issue. We thought we could depend on Afghani, police and military to try to help us defend that area. Another failure. And we failed those people that helped us most as well.
Yeah, and there were quite a few people that did help us.
Well, a lot of that goes back to the issues in our government right now. Because I know a lot of the guys that I went there with and a lot of the guys that I know and I've talked to that have also been there. When you go over there and you spend your time over there and you're around these people, you'll find a few that you can trust and you can talk to, and there's a level of trust there, but it's, for the most part, it's not as what you would with somebody you grow up with.
Yeah.
But there's a lot where you can't trust them. And like Rob was saying, the guy that pointed the pistol and dropped it, I had a squad leader that was he had gone over with a different unit before he came to us, and they were out at the range teaching the A&A. They were teaching them to shoot. Right, they were getting time on target and whatnot, and just do a light shoot. And my squad leader had noticed this one A&A was being real edgy, and they go to do a fire, and he turns right around and points it at the other squad leader there that was his buddy, and started firing. Luckily, my squad leader and his buddy there noticed it, and they put him down pretty quick. But like that right there, that one act right there will crush any trust that you've had.
Yeah, and
for anybody.
We call that a green on blue incident. So blue forces are the U.S. forces, and green is any sort of ally. So that we call it a blue on green incident. We had a couple of those when I was over there.
And I think those things are built into particular cultures. They're built a certain way. Like something like that wouldn't happen with someone who is in the JASDF, so like Japanese Defense Force.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't have that same kind of issue.
And I didn't, because when I was over in Bagram for a little while, we had Japanese forces over there. I've seen Egyptian army, Japanese. It's like I didn't even have an issue with them at all. Like I trusted a Japanese infantryman more than I did a ANP or ANA.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that was a pretty deep rabbit trail.
Yeah, sorry about that.
How do we want to wrap up today's episode?
Yeah, I think we'll ask one final question, and we'll go around the table and each of us will give a concise response. That way, to avoid rabbit trails.
Sounds good.
What question was that? You said, Jake?
Oh,
you had
going off of the first question that was asked, just where do we as a country go from here to become whole again?
Like, how do we fix this?
How do we fix the issues that have been coming up left and right for the past 5 years, and even before that, honestly?
All right. Do you want to start, Rob?
Sure. Honestly, I think it's going to have to start with the individual and the individual's family, by instilling values in their children, in their wives, and really driving home the fact that what's being said, what's being taught are lies. And if we have to go back to homeschooling and educating our own children with our own hands and our own voices, then so be it. But that's the way it's going to have to be in order to fix it, because it's too much. I mean, there's definitely a time and a place for people to go into government and into politics and local and federal government to try and fix this. But I think from the aspect of trying to fix it from the ground up is probably the best way to do it, and that's with the individual and the family, so that you raise your kids right and you send them out into society later when they're adults, and then they can continue that on. And instilling that idea in them is critical.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It does start at a family level. Instilling good values in your family, building a strong family.
And keeping them out of the indoctrination centers, aka the public school system and the current universities.
Yeah. What do you think, Corey?
I agree with Rob 100%.
Anything to add on to that?
No, I don't. No. Seriously. That was spot on, buddy.
For me, I would say I would agree with that. I think more people need to invest in, I would say, local politics. Pay attention to who's running for local office, who's your mayor, who's your city council, who's running for the school board, things like that. Because it's those small decisions in small towns that are making the biggest changes. I think part of the reason why we are where we are today is because the indoctrination started at lower levels and people have been trained. A lot of people think that the indoctrination has started young just recently,
No.
but I think it's been an issue that's
It started off as a drip, 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 and then it just the faucet slowly turned on.
well, yeah, I think it really started with our generation is when the faucet was going full force because it's
Oh yeah.
bad because we're seeing the fruition come out of our generation of all the work that they did in the education system back then. It's all coming to light now, and even worse things are being taught. So
Yeah.
you can imagine what's going to be coming out, say 18 years, 20 years from now, when those kids are going to start being our age.
No matter what kind of seeds you plant, it will bear fruit.
Yeah.
Bad fruit or good, and we're seeing the fruit that they sowed when we were in school bearing fruit.
Yeah, so along with what Rob was saying, focusing on your family, this also means getting involved in your community, focusing in on the schools, even if your kids don't go to the school, or even if you don't have kids in the school, pay attention to what the schools around you are teaching the kids in your community, because guess what? Your kids may not go to that school, but your kid may be friends with the kid down the street, and you want to, unless you're going to keep your kid in a bubble his whole life as a child, which is not good. Your kids
Right.
need to socialize. They need to know how to interact with other people. But unless you're going to keep them in a bubble and keep them locked in the house the whole time, you're going to need to pay attention to what's going on around you, what's being taught in schools around you, and how you're going to have to possibly combat that. So,
Yeah.
and go fight the school board. The government may identify you as a terrorist now because you don't want to teach elementary school kids sexual things, but you know what, so be it. At this point, it's time to put up or shut up.
Yeah. You got anything, Jake?
Yeah. It definitely starts with the family. Family and the community. I've had a lot of life-altering changes this past year, and it's really opened my eyes to a lot of things, and a lot of things that I didn't quite see the same. But it definitely, parents need to be more involved in what's happening with their kids and what's happening with their family. And in order to do that, they need to be more involved in where their kids are going to schools. They need to be more involved in what the activities and the clubs and the groups and all this. And I'm not saying they need to be like hovering, right? Just know what communities and what groups, and like they need to understand what's being taught and what's they're being exposed to.
I'm sure this kind of hits home more for you because you're the only one in this room with kids.
Yeah, it's
definitely
it's eye-opening and it's worrying. But he's a good
and
kid.
You're kind of getting it from both ends too, because Lily's 8, and the other one is like just getting ready to go into school. You know what I mean? You've got one already in school and one getting ready to go into school.
Yeah.
So.
So it's not difficult. It's definitely a learning curve that I'm having to learn quickly because of events. But it definitely, everything starts with the family.
Yeah, that's what they've been attacking for the last,
and
30 years.
It's what they're going to continue to attack.
Yeah.
Because a strong family, right? And you guys know this because my mom's been saying it for years, forever, right? 3-strand cord is not easily broken.
Yeah.
That's what they're attacking. That 3-strand cord is the family, right? The family that's what the whole thing was. That's she's been saying it forever. When you have a strong community, you have a strong family, right? There's that bond and there's that trust. And as long as you got that and somebody's got your back, you can get through just about anything, right?
Yeah, what I'm finding
when
too.
When they attack that, right? That's what they're attacking because they know that, and they're worming their way in. And with the public school system and all the with the like what we're talking about with YouTube and all the weird videos and whatnot. That's there's not as much involvement between child and parent, right?
Yeah.
So all of these things, that's what they're looking at, and that's what they're attacking, because they know if they can break that 3-strand cord, then they're almost they're winning.
Yeah.
Nowadays, because of all the distractions, your parent doesn't have to be out of the home to be an absentee parent.
Exactly.
Yeah. I once heard it was a public school teacher. I believe he was a public school teacher, but he had kind of become aware of the Common Core curriculum and what was going on in that. That's another thing for another day. But one of the questions that was within this curriculum, it was an assignment, I believe, for first graders or second graders. And in this particular school, the school offered breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So they could be a full-time daycare, essentially, a full-time care facility for children, so that mom and dad could go to work, do what they needed to do, and everything like that. So in this particular school, there was a question that was asked as a writing assignment, and it said, describe how the school, or describe how the state is like the family, but better.
I remember hearing about that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's the direction that they're pushing now, is handing control of your children
Over
to the state.
Yeah.
Well, then you got to think that most families are having a really hard time living off one income.
Yeah.
And
So
that's a
either-
whole nother thing, too, because
so you
that's
have-
purposely designed.
It is.
So that dad and mom have to go to work in order to support
Or
and feed everybody.
One of them gets 2 jobs, and
Yep.
then they're never home.
Yeah, and so then
So
the state
there's
just
that's
takes
again,
care. Yeah.
That's again, you're breaking the family up. So one parent's
Yeah.
never home.
It really started off in the 1950s or 1960s with LBJ. Sorry, yeah, 1960s with LBJ and the Great Societies Act, where that was when they started really having the big push for welfare and single mothers, and that whole system really started growing there, because things like the war on drugs started around that time, and they started giving women excuses to kick the man out of the home.
Mm-hmm. And then what happens when there's a program to give people things? More people want those things for nothing. So the system just gets taken advantage of and overloaded.
Yeah, and the biggest reason why the economy today hasn't really recovered well since COVID isn't because COVID affected it so badly. It's because people aren't participating in the economy anymore, because people aren't working. People don't want to go back.
Nobody
to
wants
work.
to work.
Yep.
So
I don't want to work. I'm going to say right now, I don't want to work. I want to spend time with my kid.
yeah,
But currently, I have to work.
yeah,
And when I'm not working, I spend every bit of time that I can with him. That's what
Yeah.
he needs. And
Yeah.
that's really what
I
it
don't
boils
want to
down
work
to.
either. But
That's what it
working
boils down
allows
to.
me to come here, so
Yeah.
That's what it boils down to. Is
I mean, work is it's necessary. It keeps you occupied. Idle hands lead to
well, yeah.
idle
there's-
hands are lead
the
to
devil's
devil's
work.
plaything.
That's
Yeah.
exactly. And I'm
So-
not saying that I don't want.
Right. You just want to sit
Yes.
around like a bump on a log.
No, I would never do that. I
yeah.
can't. I literally cannot do that. When I get sick and I sit at home, I'm after the first day and a half, I can't. I have to get up and do something.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, work helps me. I mean, obviously, work is a necessary thing for. It's always been necessary, and it was a promise from God essentially when Adam and Eve were kicked out of the garden,
Yes.
that you will, by the sweat of your brow,
Exactly.
you'll be able to eat. You're going to have to work these fields. You're going to
Yeah.
have to.
But even in
earn.
that curse, that was a thing that was for
A
our
blessing,
good.
yes,
It was
still-
for our good.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, because if we didn't work, then what would we be doing? We'd be doing nothing but evil in the eyes of God, because we'd just be if the curse wasn't there and food was still growing on trees with no cultivation, and we didn't have to work for a living, man, this world would have been burned up a long time ago by just ourselves.
Yep.
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, that just to wrap it right back around, I mean, that's really the only way to save what we've got going on, and it's not a short road. This is a long road.
We are past the short road.
Yep.
Yeah,
This is a long road. I mean, we're going to be dead and gone, and even maybe our children will be dead and gone before we even see, any sort of correction to this.
Yeah, it took them roughly 50 years in the education system to get the results that they're getting now.
And we're looking at maybe 10 years to get it turned around, let alone back on track, like getting our society back on track, getting the education where it needs to be again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a quick fix.
All of it really boils down to family and the community.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah. Yeah, God, family, country. It's
Yeah. And that, what we say in the show is God, truth, boldness, I mean, embrace the truth, tell the truth, be bold, and believe in God, believe in his son, Jesus, that he died on the cross to save you.
yeah.
And just those things alone, those three things really can turn a life around. And, we're not perfect Christians ourselves. We're not perfect, but Christ is perfect, and that's who dwells within us. And, we just want to drive that home too, that without Christ, I don't think this is possible either.
It's not.
Yeah.
We have good intentions, but Christ, and this is another little segue, is Christ said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. He didn't say, I know the truth. He didn't say, I have the truth. He said, I am the truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's that. I mean, that's part of our statement is God, truth, boldness. So we could almost say God, Christ, boldness. I mean, if you really want to come down. But truth and other aspects too. Telling the truth.
Yeah.
In your own personal life.
For sure.
Well put.
But we also want to apologize for any weird things on the microphones today. It's been a little technical difficulties today, and we're dealing with kind of a new setup as well with 4 mics.
Yeah, it's a crazy deal trying to get in, and we have a setup for 2 mics, and so we've
worked a lot of the kinks out with the 2 mic setup.
Yeah,
but with the 4 mic setup, it kind of throws in a whole new dynamic.
Yeah, we had to finagle a system, but hey, it worked out.
It did. Yeah.
And we could hear everybody, so hopefully there was something learned, something gained from all the talking.
I just want to thank Jake and Corey for being here today. I really appreciate y'all. Y'all are my brothers. 25 years, that's not something to shake a stick at.
It's really not.
Yeah. All right.
But you guys so should have seen his face when we surprised him.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, this was really fun.
I didn't expect it to go this way.
Yeah.
I'm not good at talking
That's
in front of people, and this is, to me, feels like it's in front of people. So
no, it's all good. I mean, it was kind of just us 4 having a conversation, and you, the listener, getting to hear this and digest what we had to say.
Yeah.
But without further ado, God bless
America.
Tell him that God's gonna cut him down. Tell him that God's gonna cut him down. Well, my goodness gracious, let me tell you the news. My head's been wet with the midnight dew. I've been down on bended knee, talking to the man from Galilee. He spoke to me in a voice so sweet, I thought I heard the shuffle of angels' feet. He called my name when my heart stood still, when he said, man, go do my will.